Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we in here once again. Geometry series. This is Fraser Nation 5.1, the mid-segment theorem. You got to remember, mid means middle, just like midpoint, mid-segment. Students will be able to use properties of mid-segments, and we need to remember a couple of things. Segments are lines without arrows. Okay, so anytime you see a segment, here's a segment right here with endpoints A and B. These two little lines right here, when you see them in typing or writing, that just means parallel. And this little symbol right here means congruent. So it's the same picture in the same distance. Let's move on. So mid segments, you need to know what your midpoints are. So I've put over here A, B, and C are your midpoints. So if they're midpoints, that means that they are directly in the middle of your segments. And mid-segments connect midpoints. So AB is going to be a mid-segment, BC is going to be a mid-segment, and AC is going to be a mid-segment. So more importantly, let's go ahead and wrap into our theorem 5.1, which is mid-segment theorem. So the mid-segment theorem says what? Basically, if you have two midpoints, so in this triangle right here, I have two midpoints, X and Y. Okay, and how do I know that? Because I know that these two segments are congruent and these two segments are congruent. I know that. Okay, so since these are midpoints, then I know that XY has to be the mid segment because it's just a line connecting my midpoints. So I know that XY has to be parallel to BC and XY is going to be half of BC. How do I know? The segment connecting two midpoints of a triangle is, number one, parallel to the third side. Okay, so the side that is not touching. And XY, or your mid-segment, has to be half the length of BC. So for example, if I know that BC is 24, I know that XY has to be 12. Okay? If, for example, I know that XY is 16, I know that BC has to be 32. Okay? So let's move on. I have some examples for you. In this diagram right here, I'll give you a chance to go ahead and write this diagram down. In the diagram, I'm telling you that U, W, and V are midpoints. So that means all these segments are congruent. And first and foremost, I want you to tell me what the missing mid-segment is. Well, you have U and W connected, you have V and W connected, but we don't have UV. So this mid-segment right here, UV is your missing mid-segment, okay? Number two, let UW equal 81, okay? And I want to find VS. Well, first and foremost, we know that the mid-segment is equal to half the third side. So let's write that down. Mid-segment is equal to 1/2 third side. Okay, so that's always going to be what a mid-segment's theorem claim to fame is. So the mid-segment, we know the mid-segment already. We know it is UW. So we're going to say UW is equal to 1/2 the third side, which is ST. So let's substitute stuff in. UW is 81. We don't know ST yet, so this is going to be 81 equals 1/2 ST. Now, according to Algebra 1, if we're dividing by 2, the opposite is going to be times by 2. So let's go ahead and do that right there. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So this is going to be 2 times 81 equals 2 times 1/2 ST. And inverse operations cancel, so we're just left with that 1. So we're going to have 162 equals ST. Now, the thing about ST is V is the midpoint. Okay? So if V is the midpoint, this segment and this segment are congruent, so that means all you have to do is take 162 and divide it by 2, which is VS. And VS, we know, has to be 81. Yay. Next example. So copy and complete your statement, knowing that S, K, and L are your midpoints. Well, if JS is one of your segments, you know that SA also has to be congruent to JS. So we have this one, we have this one, and being that we know that this together is equal to LK, we know that LK has to also be congruent. Because 2 of LK is going to be JA, and we know that these are split in half. So, next. Number 4, U, V, and W are midpoints, and we know that UW is going to be 4x, and we know that YZ is going to be 5x plus 4. First and foremost, mid-segment. We know that UW is a mid-segment because it's connecting to midpoints. So we know that UW is equal to 1/2 YZ. We know UW and YZ, so let's plug that stuff in. We have 4x minus 1 equals 1/2 5x plus 4. Okay? Let's go ahead and multiply both sides by 2. So if we multiply this by 2 and we multiply this side by 2, these 2's right here are going to cancel. And we know we have distributive property. So 2 times that, 2 times that. So we have 8x minus 2. And then this 1 is going to be right here. So 1 times this, 1 times this is equal to 5x plus 4. Okay. Then basically it's inverse operations until the cows come home. These cross out. We have 3x minus 2 equals 4. We have plus 2 on both sides. That crosses out. I have 3x equals 6. So we know x is equal to 2. And I'm done. No, I'm not done. I know that I have to find UW. Well, being that I already have x now, you just plug the x in. So you have 4 times 2 minus 1, which is 8 minus 1, which is 7 in the bank. Tell me what you think. Remember, you have Quizlet, you have retakes to do, and I'm out this thing. Stay in school.